Welcome everyone. In today's video, we're going to look at worm that scares anacondas, never gets to the surface, and can die of a splinter. But before we proceed, if you're new to this channel, remember, go ahead and to hit the bell icon to subscribe, so you won't miss the informative videos we will upload in the future. Now get ready and make sure to stay tuned till the end as we dive right into the video. Giant earthworm. A 9-year-old boy from New Zealand has left netizens stunned with his back garden discovery. Barnaby Domigan found a gigantic earthworm the size of a 5-year-old boy while playing in his garden with his younger sibling, according to reports. He exhumed the giant worm by a stream at the bottom of the garden and then used a stick for a closer look at it. The invertebrate is a meter long and was captured on camera by Barnaby's father, Chris. He exhumed the critter by a stream at the bottom of the garden and then used a stick for a closer look at it. The invertebrate was 3 feet long. The 9-year-old wanted to keep the critter, but his parents decided to release it back into the garden. Some scientists said the critter was probably a North Auckland worm, a rare giant annelid of the family Mecascalecidae, endemic to New Zealand. It is the country's largest recorded worm, reaching 1.4 meters, 4 feet 7 in, long, and 11 millimeters, 0.43 in diameter. Green worm. This endogic worm is the most common type of earthworm found in the UK, accounting for 34% of all identified earthworms. The common name of green worm comes from the fact that some of these worms possess bilin pigment, which gives them green coloring. However, most of these types of worms are pink morphs, so it is more likely that you will encounter a green worm that is actually pink. The truly green variations are more commonly found in grasslands, though scientists are unclear about why this disparity exists. The pink morphs have a slightly yellow-colored ring near their top end, and if you look closely at the underside of the saddle, you may be able to see 3 discs that look like suckers. As adults, these worms typically measure around 2 inches long. European nightcrawler. This worm is also known as the greenhouse worm or compost worm, thanks to the fact that it is gaining popularity as use in compost production, though it is most commonly used as a worm for fishing bait. When the worm has not fed, it takes on a pinkish hue, whereas when it has fed, it will be more blue-gray colored. They are heavily banded with lots of stripes and have tails that are paler than the rest of them. These worms are commonly found in moist or damp conditions, such as compost heaps, manure heaps, piles of decaying leaves, or other organic garden matter or bark. Brandling worm. This pigeon worm is surface dweller and is rarely seen in layers of soil. They live and feed on decaying vegetation, manure, and compost. Like other pigeon worms, the brandling worm can move quite quickly, helping to keep it safe from predators. It has hair-like structures on each segment that are like bristles, and they can cling to surfaces to help push or pull the worm forwards or backward, giving it greater maneuverability. Fetida translates roughly to foul-smelling, which is a reference to that bad-smelling liquid the worm produces when it is handled. It is thought that this is to ward off predators. This worm is also commonly known as the tiger worm or trout worm, and it is native to Europe, though has been introduced to every continent on the globe, with the exception of Antarctica. Giant Gippsland earthworm. This worm is native to Australia, and it is known to be one of the largest worms in the world at a typical length of between 30 and 40 inches long. The front portion of the worm, including the head, is dark purple in color, while the remainder is pink-gray. It is typically found in deep soils that are moist, such as near riverbanks and streams. They make complex burrows at an average depth of around 2 feet, but they can burrow as deep as 5 feet within the soil. They feed on roots and other organic matter within the soil, but they do also sometimes pop their heads out of the soil surface in search of other food. This worm is known to have a declining population, which is threatened by soil cultivation and modern farming practices. The worm also has a low reproduction rate and slow growth, which is further hindering its ability to grow its population. Kentucky earthworm. This species of worm is the only one belonging to the Comoriccionidae family. It is native to the United States and is distributed across Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Tennessee, Indiana, and Illinois. It is considered a vulnerable species because of its widely dispersed distribution and the fact that its natural environment is declining. It is under threat from soil disturbance, as well as other exotic worms that have been introduced. Oregon giant. This is a rare species of worm that is known to be one of the largest in North America at an average length of over 3 feet. The first example of this worm was described near Salem, Oregon in 1903, and it has since been sighted in just 15 locations around Oregon. The last known sighting of this worm was in 2008. They are known to burrow deep into the soil at depths of around 15 feet. They prefer moist, organic soil and spend much of their time in their burrows, but will emerge at soil level during times of heavy rain. These worms predominantly occupy the soil below forests and are thought to be tolerant of acidic soil in that fir trees grow. Washington giant earthworm. This rare worm was first discovered near Washington in 1897, but was thought to be extinct by the 1980s because there had not been any sightings of the species in a considerable amount of time. However, 2 specimens were discovered in 2010, and the worm is now considered to have vulnerable conservation status, despite environmental organizations petitioning for it to be acknowledged as an endangered species. The worm is known to burrow at depths of around 15 feet, going to its deepest level during summer to avoid drought. It is thought that this worm can grow to an excess of 3 feet. However, modern discoveries of the worm have found them to be around half this expected length. It does not have any pigmentation and can appear to be white, pale pink, or translucent. African nightcrawler. This worm is native to West Africa, but has become widespread across tropical and warm regions where temperatures regularly sit between 75 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit. This worm is easy to identify as it is dark purple all over and has a glossy shine. Its rear end is tapered to a thin point. This worm is known for its excellent ability to rapidly progress the decomposition process of composting material. Ice worms. Worms really do live in glaciers. In fact, this kind, ice worms, can't live off of them. They are about 1 centimeter long and about 1 millimeter wide. Glacier ice worms are dark brown to black, although they look red or reddish brown when they are in water. When you see them on the glacier, they appear as loose pieces of string in the snow or ice. See photographs above. These ice worms are in the class of oligochaetes and family of Enchytraeidae, just like earthworms, so are members of Annelida or segmented worms. There are other worms called ice worms that live in ice on the ocean floor or deep underground, but they are unrelated to glacier ice worms. It is hard to walk in the evening onto the snowpack of North Cascade glaciers without squashing an ice worm. Can worms be happy? You can tell that compost worms are happy and healthy if they multiply and produce compost that does not stink. The key to happy and healthy compost worms is to give them a good home, adequate food, and maintain the right conditions in the compost bin. That's all for today's video. Feel free to share any helpful information we've missed in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos from our channel. Thanks for watching and see you all soon.